Welcome back to Switch to Linux. Well, today we're going to talk about another media server application. When most people are talking about media servers, we're not talking players, we're talking servers. Most people get in there and talk about Plex, which is in and of itself an excellent server and an excellent opportunity. However, Plex is proprietary. Even if you self-host your Plex, in order to broadcast it out, use it internet-based, you still have to register your private self-hosted server with Plex itself. And that information has actually been leaked in the past. And so we have to be cautious even still about that. And I played around with Plex for a little bit. I installed it on a Raspberry Pi. I thought it was kind of fun. But at the same time, there were limitations to it that I didn't specifically like. That being said, there is a pure FOSS alternative to Plex, and that is Jellyfin. And we're going to be talking about Jellyfin today. Now, why might you want to do this? It is FOSS. It is your own server. It is something that's completely under your control. So if you're worried about Spotify, for example, pulling off your favorite artists because they're mad about some podcaster that's on their platform and they're all throwing a hissy fit and saying, well, it's me or him. And they're going like, excuse me, who are you again? And they pull your favorite artists off. Well, if you're hosting everything yourself on Plex, they're not going to be able to pull that down because this is your stuff. Now, a further upside of using something like Spotify is you can say, these are the things I like, show me new artists, so you have more ability to hear and learn about new artists. But the downside, again, is they can pull those artists out as needs be. I personally like the idea of owning your own music, of providing the musicians actual royalties from you purchasing their stuff, which, by the way, many musicians now, at great profit to them, you can purchase the MP3s from your favorite musicians, which gives them a whole lot more money than Spotify ever will. You can purchase those from them, and then you can take those MP3s you've purchased and you can put them on your Jellyfin server for use as your own system. And so Jellyfin itself makes a really good approach for this. And there are apps that allows you to create playlists and to do all of these other functions inside as you see fit. And so with this, Jellyfin is a really good service. Really, the only thing Spotify has over it is, learning about new artists, which, hey, you can still use a little bit, look on the radio, check online, check forums. Hey, maybe use Spotify a little bit, find these new artists, go over and purchase music directly from them, which doesn't even have to be physical discs. You can purchase non-DRM'd MP3s. It is possible to do that. Many artists do make those things available. I just set somebody up, one of my clients up on Bandcamp so that you can go and download his MP3s off of Bandcamp and such. And I think those can be played in other places as well. I don't know. I don't get into all that kind of stuff. I just know how to set it all up for you. Why not? But with this, Jellyfin itself is an amazing option. And we're going to be using Linode to do this. So I have a Linode affiliate link here, tlm.li/Linode. And using that link will give you $100 in credit. You can spin up as many Linodes as you want. They're good for 60 days. You can literally spin up your Jellyfin instance, play around with it for 2 months' time before you have to pay anything. After that, the types of servers we're doing, if you're just doing music low level, hey, you could do that for less than $5 a month, which I think is that less than you're paying for Spotify, and everything is your own system, under your own control. And then from there, you can decide if you want to do a full-fledged movie sharing thing between you and your brother and sister or whatever else. I know people that are doing that with Plex. Hey, these are a few different family members, all related, are pooling some stuff together to share with each other. Just double check the copyright laws in your place. That may or may not be legal depending on what all's going on. But at the same time, when used at its purest form, Jellyfin is an excellent server that you can set up for yourself. So here we have a comprehensive tutorial. I'm using information from a few different guides. We're going to set up Jellyfin on a Debian server on Linode. We are going to set up a reverse proxy so that you don't have to use port numbers and IP addresses. You can attach it directly to a domain or a subdomain. We're going to add an SSL so it has a solid SSL encryption which is going to make everything, managing everything a lot better. And then we're going to talk about how to actually upload music from your folders. And I'm using SCP command. And I'm also actually just using some wget to online resources where I knew where to get a few different options as well. So the reality is there's a lot of cool and fun things you can do. And what we're going to talk about here today is setting everything up, and then we'll come back up and we'll wrap up. So let's head on over to the computer and see the tutorial. Again, use my Linode affiliate link, tlm.li/Linode. Set all this up over there. You can try it out for 2 months without paying anything for it. So we're first going to start by opening up our documentation. Over at jellyfin.org, you will find documentation for a variety of different Linux installs. We're going to use Debian in this case here. Now, Linode also has some instructions that we'll go ahead and have a look at as well. But first, let's go on over to Linode and create our Linode. So I'm going to go ahead and choose wherever I want my server to be based out of. We'll go with Atlanta, Georgia. Sounds good. We're going to pick Debian 11, and I'm going with the smallest tier in this case. If you're actually putting this into production, you might want to go with one of the bigger ones. If for nothing else, more storage. So we're going to go ahead and give it a label that we can easily recall what it is later. We'll just do Debian Jellyfin so I can remember what the distribution is later on. And then we need to give it a good, strong root password. Alternatively, we can use SSH keys. In this case here, I'm just going to use the root password. If this is production, you might want to use the backups. I'm just going to go ahead and click through and set it all up without. Now that we've landed over here, we have our IP address. We're going to need this. So go on into CPanel, and we're going to create a subdomain. So I'll call it jellyfin.switchedtolinux.com. Once the subdomain is set up, then we're going to need to go over into our DNS. And when we get there, we're going to point the A record for this domain over into your the server IP that they just gave us. So find your jellyfin.switchedtolinux.com. We might need to search for it depending on what we have. And we're doing A records. So I'm going to sort by A records here. And there it is, Jellyfin. We're going to edit this. And there it is. Paste in our IP address. Save the record. And you might want to do it for the www one as well. So here is our login access. We have our SSH, and we're going to go ahead and enter this in. So we're going to add the login access here. And once we get into our server the very first time, we always want to do an update and an upgrade every single time we are starting a new application, a new server. That way, if something doesn't work, then you know that it's not the fact that the thing's not updated. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So we're going to follow through some of the basic instructions here. Now, there's a couple steps here that, in this case, we can enable the extra repo Jellyfin under Debian. There is the option to use like the latest using the GPG keys. In my case here, I ignored this step. I did not use the latest with GPG keys because I was actually getting key errors when I did that. So that may or may not be fixed by the time that this video might come out. But at the time I was recording these, using the alternative import GPG keys was not working. It was causing some problems. So I went ahead and skipped that step. But now with the extra repo enabled, we can just go ahead and install Jellyfin. That's nice and easy to do. Once it's done, we're going to want to go down and have a look at extra packages. So this tells us we can start it and stop it and things like that inside of there. So we can do service Jellyfin status, system control restart. We can use the etc int Jellyfin stop if we want to do that. So we can kind of see, make sure it's all working. So if you do need a test to make sure everything is working, you can go ahead and do that. So from Linode, what we have is the ability to create a reverse proxy. You don't have to do this, but it makes accessing your server a lot nicer. Rather than an IP address and an ugly port, in this case, we're going to install the Apache server, and then we're going to use the proxy system for this. And with the proxy system, then this is going to enable us to basically point to the ugly IP address with the port name with a simple website instead. So we're going to go ahead and create Jellyfin. Now, it should not be jellyfin.example.com. I'm going to rename it here in a bit. But we're going to copy the information in and then make a few changes here. So you can see what it's basically what it's doing. First thing we need to do, we need to change our server name. We're going to do jellyfin.switchedtolinux.com, if I can type right. And then we'll keep the error logs where they are. And then I kept all the other defaults. So we're going to go ahead and save that. And then now we need to enable that site. So here's our sites enabled. You can see jellyfin.example.com.conf. We're going to just rename that jellyfin.switchedtolinux.com.conf. Ideally, I should have done that the first time, but yeah, that's okay. Now we're going to enable that new website, and we're going to go ahead and restart it. I use Service Apache Restart rather than System Control Reload Apache. Whichever one you want to do is just up to you. Both of them work just fine. So now we're going to have a look over at jellyfin.switchedtolinux.com. And we will go ahead and see if that's working. And there you go. It is working. Of course, the problem we have now is that it is not secured with an SSL. So we'll get to fixing it with the SSL later. Right now, we're going to set up a few media libraries. So I'm going to go into my home directory. I'm going to make a series of directories for the various things that I want. So from my home folder inside of my Linode server, we're just making music, movies, A-books, which is going to be for audiobooks, TV, I use for TV shows. We're going to do sermons because I like listening to some Christian sermons. And there we have a variety of things that we might need. So now that our folders are set up, we're going to head on over and set up a media library. So we're going to choose a content type and then choose what folder we want. So you can see we're going into our home and music. So you have to set up your folders before you go into the select path. You cannot create folders on your server from within this platform. They must already be there. Fortunately, that's not anything that you really have to worry about. We're going to set our preferred information and then setting up your media readers. So it has Music Brains and the Audio DB as two of those. And then there's other settings here. Regarding image fetching, music album fetching, all the different options that we have. You can save artwork into media folders. We're going to go ahead and do this. Who knows? That might save me time later if I want to do that. So I can repeat this process for each content type that I want to do. So for movies, of course, we're going to go ahead and go back into our home and our movies. So anything inside of this will hopefully be a movie. And then, once again, set our localities, language and localities. Choosing our databases, so both of them are selected. We can automatically refresh metadata. And then there's a few different options there. We can save the artwork if we want to. We can grab images for each individual chapter if we want to. That might take a little bit of extra time to populate your library. All right, next one, we're going to go ahead and let's add shows. This is going to be our TV folder. So, of course, these are all standard folders, music, movies, and TV. These are all fairly standard folders that people are going to be used to using. So here's your special season display. Sure, call it specials, I guess. Don't really care about any of that. Of course, these use the movie databases, but they go into a TV section of the movie databases, which is why you have to separate them out, movies versus TVs. And the next one we're going to set up is going to be books. So this is going to be your audiobooks. So this is going in, grab our A-books folder. Really nothing else to monitor there, just enable real-time or not. And then the last one, we're just going to go ahead and use other. This is going to be for sermons. And make sure you're not using music for sermons, because it's going to try and somebody's going to have some weird sermon. It's going to find like probably the most crass and vile musician and put it over the name of the sermon. You don't want that to happen. So, of course, I can probably uncheck all these. I don't want it to be trying to place any of the sermons into the movie databases. I don't want to do any of that. So just leave it alone, my friends. Leave it alone. Use exclusively the information that we have. Well, I might want to set that real-time monitoring, but oh well. We'll get back to that one later. So now set our metadata, that localities there, allow remote connections. So this, if you're doing it in the way we're doing on Linode over the internet, you have to have this. If you are using this just on a local server, you can disable remote, and that's an extra layer of security. So now we have the ability to access it, but we want to go ahead and get it secured with an SSL first. So let's go ahead and get in here, and I'm going to install certbot. Now the certbot current and certbot instructions as I'm doing this is telling you to use snaps. No, I hate snaps. No, you can still install it as of right now with your without snaps. And then we need certbot, and then we need to install the plugin for Apache. So Python 3 certbot Apache is the package that we need for managing SSLs on Apache. Go ahead and do that. And then once we do that, we're going to run the certbot on the individual domain. It spots the only website available is jellyfin.switchedtolinux.com. And we're going to go ahead and renew it. Now, this is the second time I'm doing this. The first time I did cert only, but then you have to manually install it. I don't want to manually install it. So I'm going to go ahead and just allow it to install itself. Now everything should be all set up. And with everything there all set up, let's go ahead and restart the Apache service. And then once that is reset and we go on over to our Jellyfin server, at that point in time, we should now have an SSL enabled. So it works, SSL's enabled, no error. So now this is set up with a free Let's Encrypt SSL on our Linode server. We are proxied over to allow us to go to it with the clean URL rather than accessing it with the URL and the port number or the IP and the port number. So all that is good and taken care of. All right, since we've switched from non-SSL to SSL, we have to log in again. So we're going to go ahead and enter in our password, username and password. And now once we get logged in here, then it's going to populate for us and have everything there. Of course, we don't have any information in there yet. So now we need to go ahead and talk about that. So I've dropped some folders, some files onto my folder here that we'd like to do. We're going to run the SCP protocol, which is just a terminal-based file transfer protocol. Your basic usage is to use the name of the file you're going, and since I have spaces in these, which is exactly the format the movie databases want, for example, you'll see the slashes in there as it accounts for the spaces. And then the file name locally, and then the next block is going to be the your login details and the server and then the directory it's moving to. So in this case here, I am moving the movie 1956 version, and I'm moving that into the server at the home/movies directory. All right, once that's finished, now we're going to copy a whole folder over. So we're going to use the -R to recursively transfer the whole folder over. And then this is going to transfer, it's going to be a folder with basically just one album in it. I'm not transferring my whole library over here for testing purposes. I'm just going to go ahead and transfer what I have over. And then once that's done, we're going to go ahead and log back into the server. We can check that Remember Me button if we don't want to keep on logging in or not. And once we have logged in, now you can see that we have our TV shows. It's grabbing this album art from online. It's grabbing the thumbnails from online. We can see all that information is all from the online system. And here's how our sermons are working. So I just put up there a bunch of John MacArthur sermons that I had. Actually, if I remember correctly, I think I logged into the server and I just did a wget into Grace to Use website to drop the sermons in there. Here I dropped a couple music albums in there, just a Pink Floyd album and a Rush album. Of course, I did not have any artwork with any of those. It just happened to be the music, so it grabbed all of the art from online. And then here is the movies. So we can go ahead and watch movies here on our web browser. There are apps as well that we can use. We'll get into those in a bit here. But this right now is fully functioning and it is able to be used. There is a dashboard here where you can log in. You can do a variety of different things. We can set up different paths. We can add users. When we go in to add users, we can make them administrators or not, and then we can give them more access later on. We have parental controls, so we can control what individual movies or films they have access to. We can even put in tags onto individual movies and block with individual tags. So if you wanted to tag certain movies to not allow your kids to watch, you can go ahead and do that. Inside of your libraries, of course, we can rescan all the libraries. We can add media libraries as we see fit over here just by adding new libraries, and it gives us a readout of what we have. And then here is some information on playback. Do we want to do hardware acceleration or options like that? And then the devices will give us the variety of different devices. You'll see I've logged in with a variety of different devices and things for testing purposes. I did test this out on some Android phones as well. And you can see here where we're accessing different servers and such. The DLNA will enable the basic DLAN services. I'm not going to enable those in this case here. And we have some DVR options apparently. And then there's some advanced protocols and APIs and things like that. So there's a variety of different applications and things that we can do from within here. There are a variety of plugins. There are some repositories. There's a catalog of different plugins. So if you're looking for some other type of service or options you have, you can go ahead and look through this guy here. We're not going to specifically highlight any given plugins in this particular video. Just know where it is. So if you'd like to come out and see where everything is at. So there is all of your options to get started with Jellyfin. Hopefully this is a good comprehensive guide to get everything all set up. There are a number of different apps and such. In a future video, we'll have a look at some of the apps and ways that you can connect to your server and things like this, utilizing a few different like phone apps and desktop things and stuff like that. So with that, thanks for watching, everybody. Again, have a look at that Linode affiliate link, tlm.li/Linode, if you are in the market for servers like this. And you can do things like VPNs and hosting accounts, all sorts of other things, not just a Jellyfin server over on Linode. A lot of options that you have. With that, thanks for watching, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux. Thank you for watching this video from Switched to Linux. This channel would not be possible without the backing of the program supporters scrolling on the screen now. You can be a supporter at Patreon at patreon.com/TOMM or at thinklifemedia.com. I also want to thank the open source community who creates such excellent software that makes producing this show possible. Please remember to support your software communities. Thank you, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.